if you're a Tommy Robinson character and you haven't had many advantages in life and you've had quite a lot of disadvantages and you're white and working class, what are you allowed to say about any of this? And the government has had the attitude, you're not allowed to do anything. You're not allowed to say anything. You can't do anything because if you do, we'll call you a racist and we'll call you far right. This has all gone on for a very long time.
Douglas Murray's prediction came true. Let's listen to this discussion about Tommy Robinson as Douglas Murray discusses his journey and what we can learn from it.
Let's start with something contentious, I suppose. Tammy and I went out on a limb recently and interviewed Tommy Robinson.
I saw.
I've been watching Tommy for a long time, and he's struck me as particularly interesting. Well, for two reasons. The first reason, I suppose, is because he is a genuine working class guy, and for better or worse. And second, I haven't seen anyone anywhere who's been more unwavering in his commitment to reveal the atrocities of the grooming gangs in the UK, which are organized patterns of activity that are very pervasive, that are so terrible that it's almost impossible to talk about them without sounding like a conspiracy theorist. So now, there's no doubt that there are many things that you could accuse Tommy Robinson of, and many of those he would admit to. But to me, and also to my wife, fair enough. But the fact that he's pointed his finger at something that seriously needs to be attended to and has paid a major price for it is also not ignorable. It's like, do we expect someone who's brave enough to do that to also be perfect in every regard? That's asking a bit much, given that there's many people who, in principle, have moral characters much more unsullied than Tommy Robinson, who are cowering in silence constantly in the face of this absolute brutal atrocity. And so we interviewed him. And what did I think of Tommy? He's very articulate. He can certainly make a case for himself. And then I thought it was up to the audience to listen and to make their own judgment. Now, that was before the recent march that Robinson and his crew organized in London, which, in my estimation, I'm interested in your perspective, went as peacefully and well as the protests in Ottawa, which it was modeled after. And so I thought his crew handled that extraordinarily well. Now, in the aftermath of those protests, of course, all sorts of chaotic hell has broken loose. And, why don't you are much closer to such things than me. I mean, being a denizen of that country, I'm looking from outside, trying to make sense out of it. But my sense at the moment is that the UK is somewhat of a tinderbox. And so...
Yes, and I wish it hadn't been so predictable. I wrote about this so many years, warned about it. The Strange Death of Europe was largely my last-ditch attempt to warn my own society of birth and other Western countries not to go down the path that they were precisely going down. And as a former government minister said in the Times a couple of days ago, the thing about my predictions on that was that I made them not with any glee, but in a spirit of deep lamentation about what was about to happen to my society. And as I see it, Tommy Robinson's a very interesting example of this whole thing. But let me just explain how I see it. This whole conflagration of recent days started when a 17-year-old went into a Taylor Swift dance class a couple of weeks ago now and started hacking at young girls with a knife. Killed 3 girls, 9-year-olds, thereabouts, wounded many others. And the news of that came out, and a very typical modern British, modern European, modern Western thing happened, which was that in the aftermath, people started to suspect something was being kept from them. Now, wiser heads would wait, but not everyone's a wise head after 9-year-old girls are bludgeoned to death, stabbed to death. So false information went out online saying that the attacker was had arrived on one of the many boats of illegal migrants that come across the English Channel every week. That was untrue. In fact, he was the son of immigrants from Rwanda. But people started to sense that there was a cover-up of some kind, or at least the news was being managed. The police in Britain seem always to think they're being very clever at this, and it's always seemed to me that they exacerbate every problem they put their mind to. They insisted that the young man was originally from Cardiff, capital of Wales, and people just sense there's something they're holding from us. Sure enough. Anyway, the point is that very unpleasant, ugly, and again, evil forces can get unleashed at such a time, the spirit of revenge. And some protests started peacefully at first, then some violent. A mosque was targeted nearby, and then violence started to spread out to other towns. Then Muslim communities started to arm up, in some cases literally, with people turning up with knives to defend their areas. This is all, and maybe it'll die down by the time this podcast has gone out, or maybe it'll get a lot worse. But the one thing you can say with absolute certainty is it's not going to go away, because all of this is the consequence of what I call the problem of primary and secondary problems. The primary problem in the UK, as in Europe in recent years, has been the total unwillingness of the political and other classes in the UK to address deep, deep concerns of the public. And when people said in recent days, how could anyone leap to such a conclusion that the attacker would be, and you go, because everyone's seen this before. You know, people don't actually forget very fast. The media class may, but they don't forget very fast that it's only 7 years ago that the son of Libyan migrants to the UK went and detonated a suicide bomb at an Ariana Grande concert in Manchester. They don't forget fast that 3 people who had no right to be in the UK, including one whose asylum claim had been rejected, but who was nowhere near being deported, went across London Bridge in 2017, hacking at the throats of passers-by and shouting Allahu Akbar. They don't forget that. They notice it. But the British government and others have had this very, very clear policy that they don't really know what to do to tackle that. They don't know what to do really to tackle the grooming gangs issue. There was another set of prosecutions the other day, and another case is coming to court in the coming weeks. You could say, well, they clearly do. They're using the law, but a lot of the public say, well, not fast enough, and not really. There's an awful lot of rapists still walking around with girls who are their victims in the same towns, and the government knows that the public ascribe this to the government's immigration policies, its integration policies, but the government can't take responsibility for that because they've made that mistake now. The Conservative government that just left power, that said that they would bring migration down to the tens of thousands a year, left office with a net migration of legal migration at almost 750,000 a year, which is, by the way, completely unsustainable, but they just keep doing it anyway. The interesting thing that Tommy Robinson speaks to and has always spoken to is, what are you allowed to do about this or say about this? Now, if you're me, for the time being, you're allowed to write about it sometimes. You're allowed to speak about it sometimes. You're allowed to raise alarms sometimes. You're allowed to speak your mind somewhat. But if you're a Tommy Robinson character, if you grow up in Luton and you haven't had many advantages in life and you've had quite a lot of disadvantages, and you're white and working class, what are you allowed to do about this? What are you allowed to say about any of this? And the government, for decades now, has had the attitude, You're not allowed to do anything. You're not allowed to say anything. You can't do anything because if you do, we'll call you a racist and we'll call you far right. And this has all gone on for a very long time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Douglas Murray. This has been very enlightening and an eye-opener. We have followed Tony Robinson a lot, and both you and Tony are unique individuals gifted with the gift of being a truth seeker and being brave to stand up and to say what is right at any cost. We know what Tony Robinson has been through as a consequence, and we know what you have been through and what you are going through. But one thing about you, Mr. Douglas Murray, that we definitely need to mention, that we salute you for not only being a brilliant journalist and a truth seeker. God has blessed you with a keen eye to see the truth, and more importantly, to report the truth. When the war broke out in Gaza on October 7, 2023, you are from the very first who made the effort to go there in person and to arrive on site of Gaza, to see the devastation, the destruction, to listen firsthand to the survivors, to the relatives of those that were butchered, tortured, burnt to death, raped, the worst type of human suffering that has been afflicted on October 7, 2023 in Israel since World War II. It changed you noticeably and visibly. You became a spokesperson for the world, for the West, for the right side of history. You helped the world see what happened on that day. You helped the world appreciate and understand what Israel's up against. You helped the world, even though they wanted to be deaf to your pleads, that Hamas is a death cult. They turned Gaza into a death trap, a terror state. In 2005, August 15, Israel did the unthinkable. It gave away a beautiful swath of Holy Land with the hopes of land for peace. They gave it away to the Palestinians. And after years and years of fighting, the Palestinians are begging for statehood. Although the Palestinians already have a state of their own, and that is Jordan, because Palestinians is a modern fabrication. There's no ethnicity called Palestinians. They are Jordanians. They all came from Jordan. Read a little bit of history. Jordan is a country, that's where they belong to, and that's where they should be going. But yet, it was the anti-Semitism, the anti-Israel establishment that used the Palestinians as leverage, and they fabricated this whole Palestinian plight just to be able to do whatever it can to terrorize Israel. So Israel finally relented. Prime Minister Ariel Sharon gave Gaza to the Palestinians. Once again, every single Jew was expelled, was driven out of Gaza. Those horrific pictures of soldiers had to pull physically people out of their homes who didn't want to leave. This was their home. This is Israel. This is part of Israel. Not only did not one Israeli be allowed to stay in Gaza, even the dead were exhumed, and they had to rebury them. Shortly after Israel left, every synagogue was demolished. Israel left them a beautiful industry of greenhouses that they could have turned it into an industry for themselves to help rebuild Gaza to their needs, to build hospitals, schools, and residence But what did they do? They destroyed all the greenhouses. And then they voted Hamas to take over Gaza. And they decided to live under the dictatorship of Hamas, under the tyranny of a terrorist. And for all those years, 20 years, billions of dollars were sent to Gaza to help them in their plight. Hamas channeled all that money. Instead of helping to build Gaza and to become a state, a Palestinian state, they went ahead and built a subterranean terror colony, a terror city that we all now discovered. They spent billions on arms, on rockets, and planning the October 7 massacre. This is what they took, a beautiful land of Gaza, and turned it into a terror instead of turning it in. They had 20 years with those billions of dollars. Gaza could have been a thriving coastal city, a beautiful city with an airport, with a shopping center, with housing for everyone, with resorts. It's such a beautiful coastal real estate. We've seen all the sketches that our president, Donald J. Trump, presented how Gaza could become if they only allowed it to become. Israel did not occupy Gaza. There was not one Jew allowed to be in Gaza for 20 years. And they turned the Gaza and they turned the 2 million Palestinians onto each other. They brought up a generation believing that their purpose of life is to kill, to murder, and to create as much carnage, pain, and suffering to the Jewish people. And we know that because on October 7, one of the terrorists called their mother. We have the video footage. We have the phone conversation. We have the transcripts. And he calls his mother and says, "Mama, I just killed 10 Jewish people. I still have blood on my hands. I'm so excited. I'm so proud." And the mother couldn't stop praising him. "Go do some more, do some more." It wasn't that he killed 10 Israelis. It wasn't about Israel. It's about Judaism. This is a religious war that we're up against. And this is what Douglas Murray is sharing with us, for us to understand the war that we're fighting. And it's a war that if we don't stop it now, it's going to spread. They want to radicalize the West and turn it all into Islam. They believe that if we don't accept their religion, their caliphate, we're infidels and we are entitled to be dead. And they want to kill us. They've said it, and we have learned our lesson to believe what our enemies say. So with all this information, with all this knowledge, where do we go from here? You and I were chosen by God to live now in the 21st century. You and I were given the ability to live and have clarity to be with the right side of history. And that is where we need to go. Firstly, we need to know who our enemy is, and then we need to know how do we combat our enemy. When there's darkness, we combat darkness with light. The name of this channel is A Little Bit of Light. A little bit of light pushes away a lot of darkness. It comes after I saw a tremendous amount of darkness on April 27, 2019, when anti-Semites with the AR-15, we were the second synagogue in all U.S. history to have suffered a mass shooting. And he came in shooting and shot and killed Lori Lynn Gilbert. He ran in front of me. Then he lifted the rifle to shoot and kill me. He got 4 bullets off, but I had children playing behind me. And I ran to grab the children to safety. But as I was running, the bullets hit my index fingers. But the rest of me survived. After I brought all the children to safety, I came back to the line of fire, learned some very brave men chased them out. But that was my moment of darkness. And I realized that when there's darkness, our job is to bring light. And that's why I launched this channel. And I realized that my life, I'm on a bonus round. I could have been dead with a fraction of a millimeter of those bullets could have killed me or maimed me for life. But instead, I'm alive. I'm alive to be here today to talk to you, to inspire you, to not to go into despair, but rather become an activist. Become the one that's going to bring light in this world. And light means doing random acts of goodness and kindness, getting reconnected with your religion, whatever religion you are. Go to the house of prayer, begin praying, teach your children about God, begin having a conversation with God, bring God into your day-to-day conversation. Someone asks you, how are you? Don't say fine, say thank God fine. How was your day? The answer should be thank God. Bring God into your conversation, and then God will bring you into his conversation. And you will be an ambassador of God of making this world a better place. Let's all pray to God that we're able to see a change of world order very soon, that the Iranian people, the 90 million Iranians, will be free. They'll be restored with the religious freedoms and with the human rights, and the Middle East will become peaceful yet once again. Let's pray, and we hope that that happens speedily in our days. God bless you. God loves you.